All right, I'm showing, it's after 6 o'clock by my clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order if we could. First up, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? And I believe we do have one addition that was supplied by Mr. Piccolo.
Yes.
Is there anything else? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support?
A motion support, one last chance. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? Motion's carried, we have an agenda, thank you. Has roll been taken? Roll is complete, thank you very much. Now, Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone would please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. Next in line is the approval of the March 8, 2022 regular meeting of this board. Your pleasure.
Move approval. Support.
We have a motion support. Are there any comments, questions, corrections, etc.? Hearing none, all those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving down to resolutions, we need to consider a resolution to approve the budget amendments as presented by finance to allow for additional expected revenues and expenditures. Hard to say.
It's tongue
For me, anyway. So your pleasure on this item.
Move to adopt?
Support.
Okay, we have motion support. Is there any background from staff?
Sure,
or-
yeah, sure. We got 6 items on the agenda. Curtis, would you like to go through it, or would you like me
Sure,
to?
I can do it.
Okay.
Top one
Which,
is.
Curtis, would you mind going to the podium? I'm sorry.
Sure, I can do
I
that.
think we've had some requests of not being seen on TV or being able to hear people from the audience. So.
If there's a chance for me to get on camera, I'll take a chance. So.
Okay, you're 30 seconds of fame.
Yeah, there we go. So the first item here is just updated state revenue numbers. The state came up with updated projections about a week or so ago. So this is just they updated their numbers, so we're updating our budget to reflect what their budgeted numbers are. Number 2 was again just revenue that we've brought in this year that's already occurred that we hadn't budgeted for, so it's up in our revenue budget. So that's an increase to our fund balance. So that's always good. The third one is for the May 2022 election. We will be getting reimbursed for that, a portion of the election cost for that. So we didn't have that budgeted for, so we added that revenue in as well. Then the bottom 3 are expenditures. So the 2,700 is for the approved training that was approved at the February 8th meeting for the leadership training that we have attended. And then the 5th item here is a budget item for about $5,000. It actually, I think, came in a little bit under that, but rounded up to $5,000 for a new, basically an addition back here for code enforcement, for where our new code enforcement officer is now sitting. And then the last one is just additional budgets for that the inspection services, which is basically our code enforcement officer. Since we had turnover in that area, we had to do some additional training. We did they got a new vehicle now, which was, I believe, Mark, that was a police vehicle that had been taken out of police service, so it was handed down to that. But then to get that refitted for the code enforcement officer, and then just some other things that we realized as we went through the year and we were changing things over that we needed some additional cost for that particular fund, or for that department within the general fund. So,
Okay.
any questions?
Who has the first question? All right, I'll start then. Item B, I'm just curious, $40,000 is a pretty good lump sum to general fund. Were there any big items in there? I mean, that just seems like a lot of money that's miscellaneous.
Yeah, it is. The majority of that, not all of it, but a vast majority of that actually came from forfeitures from our pension fund that we got to reapply to basically offset current year pension cost. So that's a good chunk of that. So it counts as miscellaneous revenue and then offsets basically what our pension expense would be for the year. And that's against our pension expense for the year.
Okay, and I guess in my thinking, we're in quite a hole with pension anyway. I mean, we've got a challenge with pensions. It seems like we should be designating that money to help us out in that area as well. If we got, just a thought.
No, that's good.
how anybody else thinks about it, but, so maybe we could increase our pension contribution for the next year or whatever by, whatever similar amount.
I do know we've used up the entire forfeiture balance that was outstanding this year. So that was something that was kind of a carryover from a few years ago that we've been using up, and we have actually, I think, 2 pay periods ago, we officially used up everything that we had. So of that forfeiture amount, we've now used up that balance. Now, we could obviously could add more depending on what happens, but as of now, we've drained that forfeiture down to 0. But yes, we absolutely could use that to,
Yeah, we've got that liability. out
instead of
there.
offsetting current expenses, we could just use it to apply to,
Yeah, just
essentially
reduce,
reduce
reduce
future.
what we
Yep,
have.
that is definitely an option we could take.
Okay. This seems like a prudent move to me, but, I guess the other thing on the inspection services, we're talking about $33,000. I'm surprised, I get there's an increase in the police budget because we changed departments. Was there a decrease in where the budget was before, where the original item was budgeted? Seems like it should have been out of one and into another.
It's still in the same budget. It's just, we didn't actually change the budget as far as where the budget is for inspection services. It's just under a new department head. It's still its own department, just like it always has been. Just the costs that were budgeted for were lower than what we have incurred or need to incur in order to run that department.
So we extremely under budgeted for that then?
I mean, partially, we didn't know we were gonna have turnover, we didn't know we were gonna need a new vehicle and stuff, so some of it was just things that we didn't anticipate when we created the budget, but probably half of that was things that would not have happened had we not had the turnover, and then, so 15,000, 10,000 of it might have been under budgeted for.
So the vehicle looked bad that we were using, is that what happened?
Yeah, I
or-
believe the transmission.
It was in really
something-
rough shape.
Yeah,
It
something
was in very
broke,
rough shape.
like, on the job with it, so.
And I assume the vehicle then was the bulk of this money.
I think the vehicle is a decent chunk of it, I think.
Okay.
I don't have the detail right now, but I would anticipate yes. And then training, because we had to get the new inspection instead
Yeah,
of just doing
training, I
recertifying.
understand, I mean, that's,
The 2 biggest things were the vehicle and the training.
okay,
And then some other miscellaneous things that just added up, but that is the bulk of it.
all right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Looks like it was just me. I gotta get back to the top here, sorry. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we had a motion with, support, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed is no. The motion is passed. Thank you very much. Moving down to reports of officers, boards, and committees. Commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any item within the section for individual discussion and vote. We have 3 with us this evening: the Alma Police Department February 2022 report, the Planning Commission draft minutes of March 7, 2022, and the city manager's report, or interim city manager's report. How do you want to say that? Your pleasure.
Are we gonna add
Yeah, the fourth, you have.
Oh, we have the
election
fourth, I'm sorry.
report,
And what did we call this?
election.
personnel committee?
Personnel committee? Well,
No,
it's not
report from the
personnel.
city manager hiring committee.
City
Hiring committee, there we go, sorry. Oh, there it is, right before me. Thank you, Sarah. Should have looked this way instead of that way.
Greg, and I should have said this at the agenda, I mean, I have a small GAWA report. Do we want me to just do that under my comment, or do we wanna add it here? I can't
Since we
find my
didn't add it
notes.
to the agenda, I think
Just
it's
do it
probably
in my
appropriate that you do it either, in your comments.
Okay,
If
I
it's
will.
acceptable,
Yes,
unless there's something that needs to be officially
No,
received.
there's
is there?
not, and it's gonna be light, cause I don't have my notes.
Okay. So with that confusion,
Sorry, yeah.
well, does anybody care to pull anything, or will hear a motion to accept the reports?
I move to receive 1 and 2.
So it's the
Support.
police and the planning commission.
Yes.
We have motion support. Comments or
Support.
questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of receiving the first 2? Yes.
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 Any opposed? No. We've received 2. Thank you very much. So item numbers 3 and 4. Gonna take them one at a time or do them both together? Your pleasure.
Move to receive 3 and 4.
Move to receive 3 and 4. Okay, do we have support?
Yes.
Okay, and we want to go over them. So number 3, the city manager's report. I assume you're taking the lead on
Yes,
this
I
one?
am. Yes, I am.
All right.
The first item there, Dave Ringel's gonna be giving a presentation on that, and that has to do with our neighborhood street, renewal for the mileage for that, so Dave did a presentation on that, so don't want to spend too much time on that. Dave's going to talk about that. Second item, obviously this has come before the board a couple times with communications, requesting the commission to look at the recreational marijuana within the community. Currently, we are under the ordinance number 808, which was passed in January 2022 of 19, which basically prohibited recreational marijuana facilities within the city of Alma. The requests have come before us to look at that, but before we spend a lot of staff time and even possibly some legal fees or anything like that, coming up with the new ordinance policy, working with planning commission. The commission would need to look at rescinding that ordinance, basically prohibiting recreational marijuana facilities within the city. So just kind of wanted to see what direction the commission would like to go, and so I just put that on the newsletter to have a little bit of discussion. And
Do you want discussion now?
however you.
I mean, I don't know, is that
How
what
you
you're
guys
asking?
would like to,
Is it-
because I didn't put it on as an agenda item, because I didn't want, I didn't think that was appropriate at this time.
The statute with respect to adult use recreational marijuana is different, obviously, than the medical marijuana statute. With the medical marijuana statute, you had to opt in. With the recreational adult use marijuana statute, you have to opt out. If you don't opt out, you're in. And so I think in 2019, there was a general feeling that, hey, let's not rush into anything, let's hope and see what happens and whatever, so we opted out. So in order to get in, you'd have to rescind that ordinance. And then ordinarily, as a municipality, you're gonna enact an ordinance to regulate adult use marijuana if the commission was of the mind they wanted to do that. And I think that's what Eric's talking about as far as it would be. I mean, it would be additional time and effort, staff and everything else, probably a new policy like the one that was drafted for medical, but it will be different. And then that ordinance would be different as well. So that's, I think, that's the discussion, I think. At
So
this
your
point.
opinion then is that we need to rescind our opting out in order to,
There's no question.
Two-step
If the
process.
commission was in favor of adult use recreational marijuana, you absolutely have to rescind that ordinance. And then my advice would be you create an adult use recreational marijuana ordinance similar but not the same as the medical marijuana ordinance. There's obviously differences. So you would have, so the city, if we were gonna, basically get involved in that, you'd have control.
in my recollection, when we went through that whole process, which was lengthy and but fairly well run, I think, for
Yeah, I think
compared to
it
what I
worked
saw
out.
happen in other cities in the state. I think we did a pretty good job, so thank you. Team, I think the intention was to take a look at this once, because at that point in time, the state did not have rules written for
Correct.
recreational use, and there was just so much confusion going on that we just said, leave it alone, so. I guess I'm in favor of taking a look at things.
I think so.
I think so.
I think so. Tony, somebody told me, I think it was the manager of Consume one time when I was in there talking to him about that, who said he thought that recreational could be added by an amendment or something relatively simple to the law that we have now. I don't know, Steve said, I think you can do that by an
There's no
amendment, you don't have to go
man's
through the whole process.
You have to rescind the ordinance
That, right, yeah.
that
The
opted
808
out.
has to go, right, yeah.
And then I don't see it like that.
Okay,
I think
all right.
you're gonna have to, and that's not, like I said, there's a lot from the medical marijuana ordinance that you can incorporate into the
Adapt
adult
part of
use.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it is different. The Village of Edmore did this. And I was-
Township has done it now, too.
Well, yeah, but I was involved with the village. I represent the Village of Edmore as far as getting that ordinance up and running and whatever. And I've talked to the village manager there. He'd have no problem if we, kind of used it as a skeleton or whatever, just to kind of, and you could fill in and do whatever you needed to
Well,
do.
that's
But
the
it-
nice thing now, a lot of communities have done
Sure.
it, so we're not
Sure.
blazing any new trails here.
And I'm sure there are folks out, some of the entrepreneurs, they have ordinances from all over the state that they could probably share as well. But I think that's the process.
Okay,
That's what you need to
that's
do.
fine. He said, I think there's a simpler way, I think you can just do it by an amendment to your law. I said,
Yeah, I don't know.
okay.
That's not what I've.
Okay.
By talking with the city manager in Mount Pleasant, before Nancy retired,
Mhm.
that wasn't her.
Okay.
Take on it either, so.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily wanna follow them.
No, I think
either.
they made
No,
some
They didn't have a
mistakes.
very smooth road.
And that's
No,
what she
made
was
some
calling me
mistakes.
about, to lead me
Yeah.
some case study, I guess you'd
Alright,
say.
yeah. Yeah, we like to learn by others' mistakes.
Well, how do we need to
Where's
have
their
public
markers?
discussion and all that kind of thing again to
Well,
do
you would,
this, or-
if you're gonna enact the ordinance, there's a process by which you enact the ordinance, but I think it's just a question for now. Does the city commission wanna move forward with this idea of looking into it? Because you're gonna expend time and effort.
Do we need to rescind now, is that?
No.
No, you
I
better.
wouldn't do it.
I would have,
Okay.
if we
All you're
rescind
saying
it,
now is you're giving Eric the opportunity to do the work.
Yeah, and present something and whatever, and then there'd be a decision.
I wouldn't leave a vacuum by
Mhm.
rescinding
Well,
and
that's
then
what
not having
I
something,
wouldn't
if,
advise it.
No.
if that's what we decide. I
You
would-
rescind it now, somebody submits an application next week.
Mm.
Guaranteed.
Sounds like you guys are slow.
And you're opted in, if you reverse that ordinance, you're in now,
Yeah.
like Tony said,
Yeah.
so.
With no process.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a state statute, but it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not our statute, it's not our. Okay. I would be in favor of looking into it, I think.
Because it would be, time with the planning commission also, and, yeah. So I just don't wanna spend a lot of time and effort if the majority doesn't, so I wanna go down that path, so.
So I'm probably the lone wolf, but I'm not interested in recreational marijuana in the city. I don't know if anyone else feels the way that I do.
I would second that.
I would third that.
So it seems there's some that
The
are
vision.
opposed to it.
I think strictly, I mean, if you look at nothing else but the potential, I mean, I think that it's, and we can agree to disagree on whether this is harmful or helpful to community members to have it legally monitored and, because, I mean, not naive to think that it's not still happening in people's basements like we talked about when this first came up, but I think that there's a better opportunity to have it regulated and to be safer, and if the city can be part of having it safer and regulated and also perhaps have some tax income, I think I think that if nothing else merits looking into it, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, my feeling is prohibition, didn't work for alcohol, it hasn't worked for marijuana for decades, or if ever. I mean, it's here, it's now within a mile of our border, or coming outside of town. To bury your head in the sand at this point doesn't seem very realistic.
We all have our own opinions, so.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't think I'm burying my
My
head.
head, right. Yeah,
It's
that's
actually
not,
kind of rude, but
Well, and I
I
apologize, I didn't mean it in
Well,
that manner, but
that's how you said it,
I
so.
spend a great deal of time, looking at data, and looking at how this affects the children in the community, and that's my job, So I've especially been spending more time now because I knew this was gonna be on the agenda. And I've had staff that has spent a lot of time talking to other cities in the state, and we've gathered a lot of information, and yes, there is some tax income, and that's the one benefit. Other than that, there's not been a lot of positives, some of the markets are so saturated that they're actually going back out of business and not doing well. If you go over to Bay City, there's a lot of saturation over there. So I think Zach is gonna have a place right down the road. So it's gonna be close enough to the city. If people need to access and buy their marijuana, there'll be a spot right there at the outskirts of Alma. It's right in Mount Pleasant, it's right in Crystal, it surrounds us. So I'm not real worried that people can't get their drugs or can't get their marijuana. It's close enough. Well, why do we need it in our community? Why does it, we have medical. Everybody, felt that we had to help those that were sick and in need with having medical in our city. And I don't know, it's a.
well, I think there's, in my mind, Audrey, and I agree, it can be problematic.
Definitely not burying my head in the sand, though. I just want to make that very
Okay,
clear.
and I apologize for that remark, that was probably inappropriate, so I regret that. But I think it's, I mean, why not? Why marijuana? Why, we have alcohol in this town, and I'm sure that's at least equally as harmful and problematic in the community. You know, I don't see that not allowing somebody a business venture to sell marijuana in town is gonna make any difference. And the whole, other than perhaps, you know, we are demonstrating that, by legalizing it and making it available to folks. I mean, I don't use it, but it demonstrates that it can be used legally. And while it does cause problems for some people, so does alcohol, so does gambling, so does a million other things in the world, you know, driving erratically, the list goes on. People that can't control themselves are gonna find some outlet to misuse something or whatever. I don't know why we pick on somebody if somebody wants to use marijuana responsibly, just like somebody could use alcohol
I'm not
responsibly.
picking on anybody.
But-
It's got nothing to do with that. I'm not picking on anybody.
Well, you're trying to say, when you say you don't want it in town, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish.
Greg,
by
it's
not
the same
having it.
thing as her and us saying that we don't agree with it, and then you're coming back and saying, how could we think that way?
I'm
We're not saying that to
insulting
you, saying, how can you think that way? We're just
I'm
stressing
trying
our
to understand
opinion.
what we're gonna accomplish by not allowing a business in town.
What are you gonna accomplish by having it here?
It's gonna be accessible for our citizens if they wanna use it.
It's gonna be accessible anyway. It's gonna be right down the road.
We're clearly having this discussion now.
Well, I'm not gonna
I
sit here
no,
and be insulted
Audra,
over and over.
Audra, I agree with you, okay? You know, I know exactly where you're coming from. I respect your opinion. I know what you do, and you know, I know where you're coming from, and that's absolutely correct. But I think it's time that we do have this discussion, you know, officially open it up. But there are apparently 3 of you who do not agree. That would leave 4 of us who do, if I do my math right, you know. So I think we should have the discussion. And all of these things can be brought up when we have a discussion, and, you know, if you guys successfully change my mind or somebody else's mind, that, you know, I think it's time we have the discussion. I really do.
I think there's 2 facets to the discussion, though. I think we have the discussion in maybe a more formal matter where we do take action in terms of allowing Eric to pursue it. I'd hate to see legal fees or all the other fees that are gonna incur while Eric's looking at this process before we even get to that process. So the conversation we have, maybe we have it at a later date with a more concrete set, okay, Eric, now we want you to start. Now we're okay with looking and having the legal team look at certain areas and ordinances and things like that. That will work. It's more of I think a more of a formal setting where actually we're making that motion to look at it versus kind of now.
Well, the discussion, the preliminary discussion
Yes.
would be probably a better way to say it. It gives us a chance to look at the data. What are you finding out from other cities? What are we learning? What do we know? You know, because there's that, every day we learn more. And so finding that out would be useful if we're gonna make kind of a database decision about this. I think that would be the best place for us to go.
And I think before you guys are gonna incur any legal fees, because I do agree, I mean, I think that's an issue. If you start, I think there's enough out there now where you could get some pretty good information about, you know, crime rates maybe. You could get some pretty good information about property values and how it's affected property values, tax revenue, things like that. So you should have, I think, just by, you know, and I'm sure other cities
What do
would
we
be
learn?
happy to let you know how they're doing, or the villages and the townships or whatever. And so, you know, you could get that information, which then would allow you to make a decision up or down as far as which way you wanted to go. And it would only be after that, you know, we'd start working
Right.
on an ordinance and that type of
And one of the questions probably ought to be for anybody we're asking is, what would you do differently? What did you miss? What didn't you take
And
into
that's some of
account?
the information they collected too. You know,
Okay.
I told them, don't just ask negative.
Yeah.
Get the positives and you know, there's a lot of lawsuits in almost every city they spoke with or village. Edmore is one of the ones that seems to have done it probably the best. I think it's because they did it slowly. But yeah, a lot of lawsuits. Mount Pleasant's in 3 right now, one that's still going on. You know, just there's a lot of electricity, a lot of issues with, you know, electrical. That's been a big thing. Cartels. There's some cities that are dealing with cartels in their community now that they didn't think was gonna be an issue, you know? So, I mean, there's just a lot of different, and yes, there's tax revenue, and there's some positives too, so. I didn't compile all that, cause I didn't know
Right.
how deep we were going into all this tonight. But I will say this, for the last 3.5 years being a part of this commission, it's hard sometimes to talk and to get out what you wanna say without the insults, without the comments, or without being spoke over. And if we're gonna have this discussion, I'm not gonna get insulted. My ideas aren't stupid, my information's not ridiculous. I have opinions just like all of you, and so I'm just gonna say that right now, because I'm not gonna put up with that. Tired of it, honestly.
Nope, I
Okay,
think I
I
can,
think you got your marching
yeah, I think
orders.
I can
Okay.
move forward here from
so
here.
that's city manager's report. Nick?
Well,
Oh, are you gonna go over anything else?
No, he said
Oh,
he's done.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Unless
that.
somebody had more questions.
No, mm-mm.
Anything else?
one thing, sorry. Sorry.
feel free.
This parking lot, I'm kinda nervous about using all the DDA funds. I mean, I'm not sure what the complete balance is. They have around 100,000 and we're gonna give the whole $100,000 to use it? Like, is that gonna leave us room to like order, like the trash cans and
Yep, I have
fix
that
all that
budgeted
stuff?
That's
Okay.
budgeted elsewhere.
Okay,
But I
I
just
just
put
wanna
that
make
out.
sure, cause
No, I
I'm
just
kinda
put-
nervous about taking all the funds from the DDA. I mean, this is necessary for the parking lots, I'm not saying that, we discussed that last time. I just wanted to make sure that we had a little bit extra to.
I might have a little bit more than 100,000 in
Okay,
there.
I just wanna make
Um,
sure.
But I just wanna, run that by this
Okay.
board, because I've ran it by DDA already.
Okay,
And I think, we've discussed at DDA even what to spend this money on, and this is an ideal
Okay.
project to get this spent on, and.
I was just
once we
nervous
have-
when it was 100,000, using 100,000, I was like,
Well,
oh,
obviously, I've tried to also,
Right.
be cognizant of our general fund too, and I
Okay.
can get this from here instead of, leaning on the general fund too much also to get other things done, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
On the
touch base.
parking lots also, if I may, I was gonna save it for commissioner comments at the end, but I'll do it here because it actually makes more sense, as far as our parking lots go. With the so great addition of electric vehicles, we have the 2 charging stations that are behind, roughly, the main cafe. I have a friend who lives in Mount Pleasant who has a Tesla, and anytime they have been down here, those parking spots are always full with cars that are not electric, okay? There is no designation on there, there's no sign, there's no, I understand from my friend that it's kind of a standard to put green lines around those for electric, and I don't think you could enforce it, but to put electric vehicles only or something in those parking lots. Because it's silly for them to have, wanna come down to go to the bar or something and have no place to charge the car because the 4 spot, there's 2 spots. It's taking up 4 places with the 2 units in between. It could be used on any of those 4, but there's only 2 in there. There's other 2 up at Consumers Energy, but those are the lower voltage ones, I think. There is apparently almost universally no charge for most any of these places, although there certainly could be. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know who owns the chargers that are down there. We do?
We do.
Okay. I think it might be well to consider additional charger spots in the city, in some of the city parking lots. Those are the only 2 that we have that are public in the city of Alma right now, and that's a growing thing.
It's the future.
Mhm.
All the car industry that's where they're headed, so.
Right, yeah.
That'd be something we can obviously look at. City Marshall just put in, on one end of their downtown, I think it was 8 or 12 charging stations just for, it's just for electric vehicles.
Right.
There's no other parking there except for that.
Right. And I don't know how they enforce it, but I think there should be something downtown here too, relatively soon, to put signs up or something.
Well, that's the first time I've heard someone having trouble getting there, but that completely can
I
happen,
have,
people
I
just
have
park there.
kind of watched
Yeah,
it
yeah,
since she
yeah.
told me that. I have kind of watched it, and every time that I have been through there, there are 4 vehicles in those spots that have nothing to do with being electric, so. But then you can't. get
Honestly, I
rid-
didn't even think about it.
Mhm.
I probably parked there.
And I'm assuming.
You know what I
that-
mean? I probably zip in there and I don't even think about
They're
it, but now
probably-
I will.
they're-
Thank you for bringing it to my
They're not very well
attention.
marked at all. The 2 things are there, and you don't even know what they are if you're not used to seeing them.
Yeah.
Last time I went by, both of the chargers were laying on the ground. The head units were, laying on the ground instead of being hung up. But that's why I wondered who belonged to them, because they said at one point one had broken, was disconnected, and there's a number or something, and it was fixed, so. But anyhow, I think we ought to take a look at the electric charges on some
Oh,
of the
yeah,
parking lots,
that's
so, yeah.
very good very good.
Yes, Leads me, I mean, I don't have an electric car, so I've never used one, but the ones I've seen, I thought had credit card.
I think in
attachments to
some
them,
case you can. She says
and you
most of them
had to
do
pay
not.
for it.
Yeah, there are some, but
Yeah, we can do that. We
The
haven't
cost is
done.
actually minimal.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. You
like
can
a
do it
buck
through-
for
through an
5
app.
hours worth
Yeah.
of
You
electricity.
can do it through an app, where you don't need a credit card swiper, it's just
Yeah.
syncs it up with the app and then takes care of it. We haven't done that, there is a minimum charge per year to do that, and at this moment, we haven't had a lot of, like I said, this is the first time I've heard someone having trouble getting
Yeah.
to it, so.
Yeah.
But
Probably the day I was parked there.
we knew that's gonna come one day, and, but there is, you don't need to have a credit card, it's just like those little e-scooters, it uses an app like that,
Okay.
basically to charge your vehicle, so.
Something will standardize eventually on that.
Okay, Nick.
Okay.
Having co-renting is certainly a good idea.
Yes, definitely.
Am I okay? I just would ask, let the minutes reflect, I asked the commission to take a cleansing breath before we start this,
All right.
so we
Okay,
get this,
yeah.
this done. The search group for the city manager position was tasked with looking at least at quotes from search firms. I got you those quotes, not necessarily for action, but as a bit of background for what I think would be a fuller discussion of what we ought to be doing with, or what we ought to think about doing with this position. So as I was putting it together, mostly what was coming through for me was just my sense of just disquiet with this whole thing, that it seems to be bumping along probably in ways none of us had intended or want. So the first thing I did, and I sent you this, was what are considerations that are at least running through my head. I can't speak for the rest of you, but I think these are ones I was thinking of. One is the implications of the timing as we do this for the staff. And the question it raised for me is what's the impact of uncertainty for all the people involved, the community, the city, the employees, Eric. And so that lack of resolution as it goes on can be taxing for everyone that's involved. So that's a piece that at least is in the back of my mind as I thought about where we're going. Second is with an election coming up and a new commission in December, it's very likely the makeup of the commission may be very different than it is now. So their expectations, who they are, what they want as a commission, what we do in some ways is written in pencil because that can change dramatically. It's unclear, but likely there's going to be less experienced members on the commission in terms of how this place runs and what we do. And the role of city manager, like other roles in other organizations, the higher you go, you serve at the pleasure of the board. That gives it a little more fragility. So what do we do in terms of having some kind of structure and where are we headed with this process? So those were areas that I was thinking of. Cost and benefit issues. Questions for me were, as I talked to those folks that ran searches, clearly there's a issue of the strength of pool in Michigan. How long will this take? There are no guarantees ever of a successful search. In some ways, when we did it the first time, we were very successful. We picked off 3 candidates that turned out to be picked off by someone else ahead of us. But in fact, we don't know what a search would look like. And the indications when I talk to folks, it indicate that Michigan may not have the pool of candidates as robust as previous years. That's no different than any other business that you look at this point. So what does that mean for us? The long-term, to me, this is an issue with long-term impacts. If you think about the history of the position here, we have had folks here that have sat in that chair for a long time. So this is in our role making, if you will, a 10-year decision, possibly. So with that, what kind of culture are we intending to build? You're always building your culture. Your culture, Peter Drucker says, culture eats planning for breakfast. Who do we want to be? What kind of culture do we want to have? When you talk to search firms, and this is where we're kind of an outlier, the average time of tenure for a city manager is 3 to 5 years. And you look at the dynamics of just the year we've had. What does that mean for the person in that role? What's our culture? That's gonna be, that's the keel of that's gonna keep the ship steady. And so what do we look like? How do we do this? So I would think, when I think about this projected stability in a position, as we look at it and we try to shape what it ought to be, that's worthy of consideration. So before I keep going to the rest of now the audience participation part and all this, is there any questions about what I've said so far or red flags? So as I was thinking of it, what would be the key emphasis? And I think as a group, we've never talked about that. We've discussed it in terms of responsibilities, tasks, skills, experience, but never talked about what do we want. When you think about leadership roles, the effectiveness in all those things there in terms of responsibilities, tasks, skills, either it will rise or fall based on the leadership qualities of the person in that role. We've probably all of us worked with some of the really seem to know their stuff, but good heavens, no one could get along with them or they didn't trust them. Their skills were diminished. So what do we want? And that brought me to the question of just asking this group, what, if you could, think what would be 3 qualities you want out of the city manager? What are 3 things you want them to have, qualities you want them to have? This isn't, I mean, I would hope that I can start it, but I really would like to know, and I can jot them down, or if you don't want to do this now, you can just write them and send them to me, and I'll forward the list to all of you so you can see what we did. It's your pleasure with that. You want to discuss it? Do you want to just think about it for a little bit and send me something by the end of the week?
I think I would want to send you something.
Okay,
So
then
I
I can
can
bring
think
them
about it
back.
some more.
Is it-
Nick, give me please a little bit more definitive answer about what those qualities would be, okay?
I think, okay.
Integrity, obviously, okay,
Well-
dedication.
Right.
That's all of us are gonna have.
Yeah,
Give me a
but
specific,
those-
pick
okay, you
one
would think
that
of-
you would list.
Integrity, I want someone with judgment. I would want someone with empathy. The capacity in the leadership role is not to just have your point of view, is to understand the point of view of someone coming to you.
So do you want terms that are that?
Yeah, I
broad?
would just think of an
Integrity,
adjective. Yeah.
empathy, things
Yeah,
like
that
that?
would be it for me, and then you
Okay.
kind of have a list. And sometimes what happens, this is called sometimes a nominal group process.
Okay.
Themes emerge. We've got, 7 different people around the table? Maybe we get 4 or 5 words that seem to come up, or families of concepts that come together. So if you get it to me, I'll try to do something with it and get it out to you. Does that work for you? You're thinking, Audrey?
I'm just thinking, how do you measure, so if you're gonna interview somebody, how do you measure empathy and integrity and?
It's funny.
Which I think those are great
yeah.
qualities, and I agree, but I just don't.
It's funny you should ask, actually, because I do actually. I do have some ideas, because it brought to what are the choices we have as a commission. And what I try to do is throw everything I could think of on the table. I didn't give you stuff in terms of but if you want to know what I think, I'll tell you after I say that. But here's what. Yeah, and so there were a number of choices we have. One of the things that we talked about when we said, and Eric, I hate to talk about it like a third person in the room, but when we put Eric in this interim role is to say we get a chance to see how he does. A way to assess some of those things is 360-degree evaluation. And I don't know if any of you know quite what I can unpack what I mean by that. 360-degree evaluation is a thing I have done, and it's really good when you're neurotic and worried about things. But it's to get an assessment from your peers, from supervisors, from people that report to you about some of those things. Communication. If you want to later, I brought one that I used just to give you a sense of what was in that. But what usually would happen with that is you have these dimensions and people rate them on it. But if you're going to rate them on it, you can't just say, can't be like, I went to that restaurant, the food sucks. You have to give me an example of what didn't I like, what meal didn't I like, so when I talk to the chef, I can say, this is what you need. with the understanding then that nobody's perfect and people have strengths and weaknesses, what you have is you think about a 360-degree evaluation, and the technical terms are both summative and formative. Summative meaning it's a snapshot of where we are. But formative in terms of saying, here's the directions we need to go, and here's some specific things we would like to developmentally, we'd like you to work on. Assuming that we're all in the process of becoming, and there are ways to help identify that. So that's part of it. They'd be confidential. What I would say is nobody in the staff would get them and review them. They're confidential. The information's an aggregate. Usually, when I did it, I would have an aggregate information of this is how it was rated. And then the commentary or examples, I would have a list. So when I sat with the person, or when someone sat with me, I had very specific examples of why someone said those things, as opposed to really like them, really don't like them. So you want someone from outside, you could, I mean, I have some templates if people want to work on it with me, where you could, that's a process you could do in the next 4 to 6 weeks. That gives us a basis to say, what do we want to do next? So that would be one. The other is you hire a search firm. Most of those, the timing was 3 to 4 months, and you saw what the prices were. So as you process this and we think about it, that's what it is. You could do an abbreviated search, which is to say we're reopening it. We're going to seek out people and ask them to apply. There may be other folks who reopen it. Others, you hire the acting director. You could also replace the acting director with another acting director. I put everything in, but I couldn't find the kitchen sink. So that's what's in there. My recommendation is, with all that in front of us, we kind of at least say within the next meeting, or no later than the next meeting, this is the path we're going to choose. So that's a bit much, but my hope was to say, let's get some directional things. If no need, I don't want it to unduly influence, but if you want to know my preference, I'll give it to you. But that's kind of where we are. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Thank you.
Now we want to know your preference.
My preference, actually, my preference would be my preference would be a 360-degree evaluation. And the idea is, it does a number of things. One is, for any of us, I mean, I would think I would want the commissioners to fill one out. I'd want the direct reports. Often what you do in my term is, I would be able to say to the person doing it, they would say, are there a couple people you want to make sure that aren't necessarily direct reports that can give us information, that work with you? And it would be this city community, not the community of Allenwood, but the city community. That allows us, in Eric's case, to say this is how it's going, and these are the growing edges. It allows us, in our case, to say, is this where we want to stay? Where do we want to start a search? Do we want to do certain things? But it gives us a structure from which to operate. The things I actually pulled, the one I used on someone used on me, has leadership skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, conflict management, action orientation, organizational skills, and character kinds of things.
But whose leadership are we evaluating at this point?
We would be evaluating
Eric's.
Eric's, okay.
It would also allow us then, it would
want.
allow us, no, this isn't what we want, it's like, how you doing?
Okay.
Where are the growing edges? Where
Okay.
do that need to happen?
Nice.
It allows us then, because it's an evaluative process, if Eric wants to do that in a closed session, we would be able to review that with him in a closed session and do that, because I would assume that's what we would do, because it's an evaluation and that's part of a personnel matter. Tony, I'm looking at you. That would be right, so that would allow that conversation to take place there. So that's, I mean, I'm prepared to be corrected by folks too, but it also expedites stuff. To me, it gives us.
But how is this going to answer the question that you and I spoke of earlier? Is this commission has never set an objective for exactly where we want to go?
Well, I mean, part of it is the first half, which is what qualities do you want? Where do you want to go? I think the second half would be to say, both, this is, in that summative sense, this is where you are, this is what people think, those around you, it's going to be varied. and it also kind of says, what would you like? And so it gets into management. I think the bigger picture gets into some of the, when we started to look at planning and other things, but it kind of takes the temperature of the culture that we have here and allows us to work with that and nudge it along. It's kind of like turning the Queen Mary. I mean, organizations are highly inert. They don't like change, but you do that incrementally and you look at what you want to become. It can become aspirational, Roger. I don't think it's going to give you the answer. It's going to give us maybe a better direction than we have right now, is my sense.
Yeah, that's the problem that I see with it right now, is we don't have
Yeah.
any clear direction for Eric or anybody else to
But,
step into this job. So
but,
here's
and I
exactly
would
what
also
we want.
I would also say that just one of the failures, I think, as a commission that we had in the past, we didn't do this with other city managers and stuff bump along. It's not something you do every week or you do every day. I would suggest if this is a process the city management or the commission likes, and the only person we supervise is the manager. But the manager can say with their direct reports, I'm gonna have a 5-year cycle with my folks. So once every 5 years, my direct reports go through one of these. You can't do it all the time. It's an entirely organization, but it gives you a heads up and it can be useful for the organization.
Nick, just so I'm clear, because initially then, you're asking the commission to give you the attributes they're looking for
Yep,
in a city manager.
and I'll just give to the,
Right. And so then you do this 360-degree evaluation,
Yeah.
as you call it. The only person you could ever do that to in this situation is Eric.
Right.
I guess, so that'd be the second thing.
Right.
Which would then give you folks, hopefully,
information.
Good. Well, not just information, but an idea of, do we like what we have?
Yeah.
Is this where we want to be?
Yeah,
And it would only be if the answer to that question is no for some reason, that you might be thinking about doing something else. Is that what you're
right. I
talking?
mean, it gives us guidance going forward, I think. With what,
But I mean, that would be the order of it, right?
Yeah, that's the order, I think.
Yes.
The last question of that is who? I mean, I don't think you're not gonna want someone from this group to do that because of the confidentiality. I mean, a commissioner I could do it, but if like, for example, if I was doing it, and Greg shaking his head, no, I think I'd recuse myself from voting on anything. Because it's not, the shaping part gets to be the deal. You could look for someone to, like an independent person to kind of, I can work with this group, if there's people who want to just take a look at what the template looks like and just say, yeah, we like it or we don't. Get that to that person, get the process in place and hire somebody to do that process. We can do it that way. I don't think that would be, it's not going to be the $14,000 we're looking at, I don't think. So, what's your pleasure? Do you want me to look and see if I can find somebody and get back to you with that?
I think that
I would like you to. I know I've been involved in a couple of these in different organizations, and I think they're very beneficial. I think it also fulfills one of the obligations that I know many of us have been concerned about, that we don't have a good evaluative process throughout the organization. I don't think, it's my understanding, we're not doing regular performance reviews up and down the chain throughout our staff.
And we should be.
I don't think it's occurring. I think we started it before COVID and somehow it slipped through the cracks, but I think we need to demonstrate that it is an important process. I certainly believe in it. And I think the other thing, it gives us an opportunity, when Eric was hired as the interim city manager, it was suggested that, he deserved a chance and to, prove himself or whatnot. He's certainly we've given him a chance. I think it's fair to give him an evaluation and take us, if this is what we want, that's what we want. And if not, then so be it. He needs to know that too. But
Because one arm's length.
Nick, would you be thinking of somebody like a personnel director of
Yeah,
another corporation in
well,
Alma? Or
I would
something
have
like- yeah.
suggested the person did the staff training, but except she's gonna be out of town, so I can't do that. But I could contact her and see if she could recommend somebody. I don't think it'd be hugely expensive.
there's firms that do this too.
Firms that do it too, so.
Just so it's a
but-
third party
But
that's.
Right,
it's just,
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
and mostly it's the collating and putting this together
Right, it
for
would take.
us, and then
yeah.
we would have the information.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. I don't think I need a vote on, formally, I'm just taking the nod to do that.
Unless you think you want a budget, if you want to engage somebody with a budget, but you
I-
might want to talk to them first and find out what the numbers are.
Let me get the numbers first and get to you, but I can there is 3 weeks between our next meeting, but I can, what do I need to do in terms of open meeting? Can I get that, just send that information to the commissioners? Am I violating any
We
law
can't-
against
we
me?
can't
of
take any
nature?
action.
No, we can't take action if I just send information out.
Yeah, there just can't be any deliberation toward
Okay.
action.
Do you
All right.
still want us to email you our?
Yes,
brief?
please do, and then I'll get you that information. If you guys don't mind, that would be great.
Because that's a separate process.
That's a separate thing, but it just helps us
Okay.
look at what we're all thinking, at least, if not on the same page, have an understanding of what we're all thinking, so that would do it. Thank you.
More questions for Nick?
Just thank you for all your time that you and the
Thank you,
committee
Nick.
put into it.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Now you have answers for people, at least, so.
Okay, so I think we had the motion and support on the table to accept the last two, is that correct? One last chance for comments or questions. Hearing none, all those in favor be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Motion is carried. We've accepted the last two reports. Thank you. Next up, we consider a resolution to appoint the following members to the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's Russ Wright, Ted Godfrey, both for terms ending May 1st, 2023. Nina Guerrero and David Justin for terms ending May 1, 2024. Josh Cromer and alternative member William Gorton for terms ending May 1st, 2025. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions? Eric and I did have a chance to meet with both Josh and William, who would be new to this. And both candidates, in fact, the third candidate we talked to was also outstanding. We'll talk about him next, Justin, but it's great to see community members volunteering to serve on these boards. They're obviously not highly compensated. They're compensated at zero, I believe, slightly below us, but
Just below us.
we are, it was very refreshing to see citizens step forward, so. Okay, with that, all those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? Okay, thank you, and thank you to everyone that's volunteering to serve here. And the next one is consideration of a motion to appoint Justin Fowley to the Planning Commission for the balance of the vacant term ending June 30, 2024. A pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion support. Any additional comments or questions? Again, we did meet with
Yes.
Justin. Great meeting. Very good individual. I think they're going to have some good judgments here, so.
Who is he? Brief, I don't
He
know who
works at Elma College.
Pardon me?
He works
Justin
at Elma
Fowler.
I'm
College.
not sure what
Isn't
department
that
it's in.
Justin Fondley? Works at
Is it?
He's in the IT department.
Yeah, but
Maybe
that's
it's-
Fondley, F-O-N.
Finally.
F-O-W.
Spelled wrong here?
Okay.
He's
So we appoint the right person.
Okay.
I don't know.
So it is,
This Foley guy, I don't know.
F-O-N-L-E-Y.
thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate that, because I didn't catch that.
Finally, okay. He's IT, okay.
He's in
Just
IT.
wondered who he was.
Okay. Anybody else? All those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion is carried. Again, our thanks to everyone that volunteers. Next up is presentation from Public Services regarding the Neighborhood Street Improvement Millage Renewal Proposition. Looks like David's moving the podium, so.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this. My arrow board works. These work. If not, it was working before, but you press over one word, there you go. Might have to have Madison help me out with this, so. First of all, thank you. This is a continuation of what we talked about at the goal setting session, if everybody remembers, a month ago. This is the formal presentation to adopt the language for the millage renewal if it goes to the voters in November. Historically, that's where it goes, is in the November election. And this is the 35th year that we have been doing this. So going all the way back to 1987, when I go through the records of what's been proposed in the past and how we've gone through this. Hey, look at that, my arrow board worked. Just as I mentioned, since 1987, with voters' help, the residents of the city of Elma continuously addressed the needed improvements for our street system throughout the entire city. Just to give you a refresher, you've heard me talk about this before. Each year, the city of Elma's entire street inventory is surveyed and rated using the Paisley engineering standards. Information is input into asset management software to analyze and report deterioration information to MDOT. We have to submit that annually to get our Act 51 funds. Utilities under each street are evaluated and are used to help determine priorities on street replacement. Put that in bold because that is very important in helping to select our candidates for upcoming replacements for the next 6-year plan. Take into account the road ratings, more importantly, the underground utilities. All that is factored in, and this is where we come up with the proposed street replacement. And the final the final list of proposed streets is determined through the city staff recommendations and for city commission review. What that does is we look at all the information as far as breaks, amount of plugs, clogs, pipe issues. We also talk to the staff to find out what they know and how often, if some of these like sanitaries, if they're on the weekly checklists. Water main breaks, we can look through and find out how many water breaks they've had, how many sanitary breaks they have, flow rates, that sort of thing. You can look right here, this is the map that you've looked at ever since you've been here in the city commission. This is that same map digitally. You can see throughout since 1987, these are the streets that have been replaced as a part of the annual street millage. You can see that there's been quite a chunk of roads that have been replaced. You take into context, and I've been here since 2000, and it's been kind of a neat thing, seeing each street that gets placed on that list, and which one gets done. And you can look at where we've progressed. You can see the neighborhoods that have been done, the neighborhoods that have not been done in that 35-year span. Gives you a context of what we've done, where we're going. That's not just street millage funds. You can see the purple on there is other funds. That is either through, if there's a special MDOT project that we can qualify for, or if there is the annual, now it's every 6 years for federal street funding. If you remember Lincoln Avenue, Superior Street, those used to be every 3 years, now they're every 6 years. So that's when you see the purple, those are not local street millages, those are other funds. Typical life expectancy of a street, you've heard me talk about this, is about 25 years. Some maintenance is needed, but before it gets to critical failure, and I've got another slide here I'll show you next that kind of better illustrates that. Preventative maintenance that occurs on a street rated at a 5 and above, you can expect to extend its longevity as well as its useful service life. But anything below a 4, you're really kind of wasting your money. It's a matter of putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery. It doesn't make any sense to do a seal coat on a street that's a 3 or 4 because you're going to basically be sealing over gravel and you don't get the useful extension of life on it. Same thing as a crack seal. Typically, a road that's rated about a 7 would be a candidate for a crack seal. Streets that are 5, 6s, even some 7s, you could do a chip seal on it. Some streets, if they're structurally sound, you could do overlays, different preventative maintenance measures on them. But the road rating tells us and gives us a good barometer to figure out what to use for typical maintenance. In a perfect road, you've got a lot of different tools in the box. It's a matter of, but there's a lot of things you take into account. You take into account drainage, you take into account the subbase. There's a lot of different things, utilities underneath of it. You've heard me talk about that now a number of times. For streets rated at a 4 or below, the real solution is reconstruction. They're beyond maintenance. There's nothing you can do for preventive maintenance that can extend its service life. You heard me mention a month ago, all the streets recommended for this cycle of street hab are rated 4 or below. Most are 3 or below. This is a deterioration curve. I looked through some old slides that were presented in years past, and I thought I could do a comparison analysis. What you see up here in the top left corner is a section of Woodworth Street. We call our segments, you might call them blocks, but we analyze every single block of street, and then we give it a PACER rating. 10 being brand new, 1 being junk. So this was, the one in the upper left corner was from 2015, actually, yes, 2015. You can see in 2005, that was a brand new street. Any of you that have been in town, you remember, I fondly remember that, 2005, we replaced that street. Under the asset management software, it's called RoadSoft. Michigan Tech developed it, and that's what the state of Michigan uses for analyzation of pavement surfaces, roads, that type of thing. But that's a deterioration curve in the middle, that black line. So you see in 2005, it was brand new, it was rated a 10. That black curve is based on the computer's projection and modeling based on how it was built, the type of asphalt, its useful life, and how long you can expect it to last. You can see that deterioration curve. Should be a nice slow curve, and you can manipulate that based on a few things. You can see down here how data can change that. You look at surface maintenance. If I talk about crack seal, ideally you do it at a 7. So you see 2015 you rated it a 7. And that shows that curve. And then you see the projected ones where it goes down based on, in here, what they'll call its critical service life, 5 or below. Their intersection, they project, this computer back in 2015 projected And in 2019 is when that street passed its critical failure rate. So you can see based on that projection, somewhere around 2030, 2035, that road gets rated at a 1. You can see where we've rated it, and then those dots will show you milestones along there based on that projection curve. Down here was modeled from 2020. Those dots signify where we rated it for its PASER rating. And if you can see the numbers that are along the bottom, according to this, someplace in 2040, you see where the critical failure rating is a 4, where those two red lines intersect. That's where it's projecting that that road fails. The black line is computer modeled. The green is based on actual data that we've input. So you can see the construction methods that we have been using. This is a good way to illustrate that. We are extending its useful service life based on construction methods and maintenance. The street, based on a 7, is due for about a crack seal. If you crack seal it, instantly that road will go to a PASER rating 8. If you chip seal it, it'll go to a 9. So you can bend that curve, it'll move up another notch to whatever it's rated, and extend that service life further out into the future. But this is the exact same block of Woodworth compared 5 to 6 years differently. But you can see how that projection curve, how the green, we pulled that away and made it last longer. You look at inflation, a number of different things on cost streets. Where does the cost go up? How much does it cost? Where do they cost more? This is a good slide to show that. This is based on 2009, based on 2020 costs, so you compare the two. You can see the different costs, and we've got a percentage of how much they've gone up in 10 years. So, machine grade modified. The best way I can explain that is that's to have the crew come in, tear the road up, turn it into dirt, and start from scratch. That's to get them equipped to tear everything out of there. You can see in 2009, the average cost of that was $1,400. 2020, we're up to near $30,000. That's per station. Station is 100 feet. You can see that's gone up almost 112%. Storm pipe, I'm not going to go through all these individually, but what I'm going to do is give you a highlight. Cost of pipe has gone up significantly in that 10 years. That's based, what this slide is a good presentation to show is where the costs are going up, and the best explanation is the demand for pipe. The developing world is developing, costs are going up, materials aren't getting cheaper. You look at sand, labor costs, trucking, machinery to build these, man hours, labor, time to set the pipe, that's all included in those prices. You buy the material, you set it in the ground, that's all included in those prices. So it's based on materials, availability, and manpower, and that's where you're seeing those costs increase. You look at the cost of sand and gravel, gravel's going up. For the last few years, I'm sure if you talk to anybody that's in the roads, gravel costs are going up. Sand is going to be projected to go up, but not as much as what gravel is, and that's based on regions, availability of material. You see asphalt's gone up, those all go up with costs of raw materials. You look at concrete, cost for to put in a drive approach, flat work, 90%. That's because of personnel hours. That's labor rates, and that's materials, and the availability to get employees to do this. You've heard the labor shortage. Well, the construction industry's probably seen it for over 10 years, at least in the road building. So these costs have gone up literally because of materials and labor costs. The ones that stay relatively consistent are the mechanized ones, things that are machines that they just set it, forget it. The price of concrete curb and gutters stayed relatively the same. To do that analysis, you say, well, they're both concrete. The methods of placing them are very different. Driveways, you don't just set it with a machine. You have to have people form it, screed it, shape it, all that good stuff. Concrete curb, you pour the concrete into a mold, and it runs right along a string line. That's why those costs stay relatively the same, or similar, excuse me. This tells you, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question on that last one? Before we move, this is probably a very stupid question. 6 inches of concrete is $3.25, and the bituminous asphalt on the top of it is $62.50. Why not put down 12 inches of concrete instead of bituminous?
Concrete, those costs are not exactly comparative. The concrete is per square foot, asphalt is per ton that we put it down on.
Oh.
So they're not exactly apples to apples. That's how we pay for them in our world.
Okay, all right, okay. So there's not that great differential between.
No,
Okay.
you know, if you do it
I
with
assumed
concrete,
concrete was
it's,
gonna be more expensive than
it's
asphalt.
substantially more than
All
asphalt.
right, okay, all right. Like I said,
If
dumb
you were gonna
question.
pay
Move
it.
on.
It does last longer.
Yeah, Right.
So this is a slide, certain questions come up, how far are we getting with it? This shows you, through the years, how much we've gotten with our money. Back in 2016, we were able to do approximately a quarter mile of street each year. Now it's about a fifth of a mile. Roger, I think, asked the question, how long does it take us to get around? Back in 2015, 16, it was about 115 years before we get around to do a street. We're looking at about anywhere between 180 to 190 years now to come and do a full cycle. This shows you our Paisley ratings, shows you the bell curve. There's a couple different ways I can project this. This is one that shows it through a line. Majority of our streets, kind of where you would like them to be, more in the middle, skewing at the 5 to 7 level. Obviously, if you had a perfect world, everything would be at 8 to 9 to 10, but shows you a nice bell curve. So that's still good. They're not all leaning towards 4s, 3s, and 1s. So that just gives you a snapshot of accurately where we're at when we submitted for Paisley ratings. What this is the streets that we're proposing to reconstruct as a part of this next 6-year plan. Based on that list that I proposed a month ago, I took a few of those streets off there based on cost projections, based on availability. Still, what I've shown on there is Charles Avenue from Vassar to the rail trail. We all know kind of condition of that one. Most of these, I hope we're all talking, you know what we're talking about with these. Richmond Street, that one is a carryover of this current 6-year plan, but based on availability of materials and costs, that one I'm gonna have to push to this next 6-year cycle. So it'll be first on the docket if this gets approved, so Richmond would carry over. Riverside Drive from Marshall to basically Ely Street. The condition of that one, I don't see how that one's gonna last realistically another 6 years without some type of a substantial surface improvement. Moyer Avenue, that street, and all of these are based on utilities below it, water and sanitary as well as the road surface. So Moyer, same reasons. Austin and South River. Sanitary is in tough shape on that one, as well as there is no availability of water in that section. Rosedale Street from Pleasant to Grove Street. So that's our 6 streets that are proposed for the next 6-year street reconstruction program. City of Alma has about 48 million miles total. This proposed millage gives us 1.38 miles compared to years previous. Last one we were about at 1.5, a little 1.55 somewhere in mileage. In the years we've got them proposed is Richmond Street first, 441,000 for total projected costs. Moyer Avenue, 392,000 if you round up. Charles Avenue, 682,000. Riverside Drive, 396. Austin and South River, 285,000. Rosedale, 468,000, rounding up. And this is the ballot language, which is the same as it's been since the 80s. And I could read it out loud, but shall the limitation on the amount of taxes which may be assessed against all property in the city of Alma, Gratiot County, state of Michigan, be increased by 2.5 mils, $2.50 on each $10,000 on state taxable value for a period of 6 years, 2023 through 2028, inclusive for the rehabilitation, repair, and maintenance of public streets and ancillary public infrastructure within the corporate limits of the city of Alma.
Dave, I'm pretty sure that now, that this has been the language since the 80s, I'm pretty sure now you should include on there the amount of money that you're gonna take in per year. I think that's a
Okay.
statutory requirement
Okay.
now. If you wanna get with me, maybe tomorrow, or,
Yep, I've
later
got
in
that
the week,
figure if we need it.
we can, I'll take a quick look, but I'm pretty sure that you gotta have that in there.
I have a question about language, Tony, or Dave. This is actually the same as it's been. The word that throws me is shall increase by 2.5,
Yeah, that's the
increased
wording.
by 2.5 mils.
Has to be.
Does it have to be that, because it's really maintained at 2.5 mils? I mean, I understand if it goes away, there's none, but it's not, this,
It's not going
do
from
people
2.5
gonna read
to
this and
5.
say,
Right.
we're paying 2.5, are they making it
Yes.
5?
Right.
There's language you can put in there too, Nick, to clarify that.
For the renewal, if that's an option, because that's a good point.
Yeah.
Dave.
This
Wanna-
is-
Well, because I just think people are gonna look at that and not,
Existing
Dave,
not
get-
read it.
Get with me on this,
Okay.
I've got updated.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So Just if you could look at that. too.
Okay, I just wanted to give.
Because that'll scare everybody. That's a no right there to 90% of the city of
Well,
Alma.
they've passed it all.
Yeah, I know, but, you know, when
But
I
I-
look at that,
Yes.
I think it's better just to be, more transparent.
Yeah, I want,
anyway,
yes, we
let
want to be clear on that, so folks, because there has been talk of, and we've talked about it for the last year and a half amongst numbers. There's the notion out there, the fear of millage fatigue, so I want to be very clear that this is a request for renewal, and this is renewal of what we've done since '87, and trying to maximize where our money's at and how far it goes for each 6-year cycle. But thanks.
One thing, Dave, if you look at your maps, I believe that section you got circled on Riverside Drive,
Mhm.
if I'm reading the information you provided correctly, that particular section of road was one of the first sections we did when this village was first started,
Mhm.
all those years ago, back in 2000, or whatever it was, I forget.
No,
the-
88 would have been the first
88,
year
so
cycle.
1988. We're now doing a piece of road that we already did using this program. And there's much, much, much more of the city that's never been touched.
Mhm.
It just reinforces what we've talked about for years, is that we continue to fall behind. This doesn't cover what we need to do. We've talked about increasing this millage every time it's been up. Every time it's been up, we hear that now is not a good time to increase. People aren't gonna vote for an increase in anything. We don't wanna pay more. I think it's time we really seriously explore some alternatives. One alternative, and I don't have an answer, but one alternative that, is to increase this millage, increase the ask. Even doubling it isn't gonna get us where we need to be. It's not gonna get us to a sustainable model. You said you're now close to 200 years as far as replacement.
So it's projected 180,
So,
190.
and, we're doing 2% and we just aren't, we're not there. Some of our roads, at the rate we're going, eventually will turn to gravel. We're either gonna make the hard choice of deciding which ones turn to gravel and try to do it intelligently to maintain the value in the city that we have, or it's gonna happen to us and we're gonna be just dealing with the consequences of what happened to us. One other way to make these dollars, if we don't wanna increase this, or even if you did increase it, one way to stretch these dollars is to allow the people to have some input by assessing the special millage the way we do sidewalks, and perhaps we use this money to cover half of the cost, and the actual property owners involved in the streets being renewed would pay the other half through a special assessment district. That alone would double the amount we can get done in any given time period. It's not fun, it's not easy, it's not gonna be pleasant. It's gonna be hard to explain to somebody this year while we're gonna special assess them for their road, when last year, the guy down the street down the road, the block down the road, got it at no cost, and they're just, it's not fun, I'm not gonna enjoy it, I don't think any of us would, but we gotta face reality here that
Okay,
this
go,
is happening.
go to the next one, there you go, thank you. It's a good point, I want to come back on that one. I have a slide that can show that. Couple thoughts that were mentioned in there, at least if I could.
Is this a solution? Because that's what I'm literally looking for.
Well, if I had him, I'd be the governor right now, and I'd be fixing the darn roads, but doing the best I can with what I got. So, what I would propose, and I will wholeheartedly agree with that, love to have more money for the roads. I will be the first to say that. I want more money for roads, I want to be clear on that, the city needs them. But I don't want to run the risk of losing this 2.5 mils. This is vital to us to get it to do street replacements. What I would propose is the renewal of this one with a real serious look at, what I would propose at the next election cycle is a road maintenance millage, where we could go back and do what we've talked about doing, and basically what we're gonna do on Riverside Drive. That's why there's the eclectic mix on a few of these, to do what's called a mill and fill. And you could ask for, realistically, about 1 mil, possibly 1.5, and based on, that's why I wanna show these costs. This is what residents pay based on their market value, and then the 2.5 if it's extended. To do a maintenance millage, if you go back and look at that map, we could go through, and a number of these that were done since '88 are actually in pretty good shape. Hazer rating, 5 and 6. drive around town, look at them. I'm looking at the southwest corner of town, look at the number of them that were done there. Those streets right there are holding their own. They're probably about a 5 to 6 Paisley rating. Those ones, you could either look at doing overlays, or you could do what's called a mill and fill. You can go there through there, you can, remember what happened on Superior Street here last year? You mill off 1 inch, put in a new road surface cap. Some of those utilities are not in bad shape, so you don't necessarily have to replace the utilities that are underneath of those. You could just do a superficial road surface replacement. That's what I would propose for a road maintenance millage. If folks are willing to pay for that, we can propose that formally and say, okay, now, looking at what you mentioned, Greg, is to do the roads that have been done, some of them that need their surface life, or excuse me, their surface replaced, maintenance done as far as significant, using $150,000, $200,000 would go a long way towards a road surface. You could realistically do 1 to 2 roads a year just on that method, based on the length, number of those things. But what you would do is you could do this, things similar like Superior Street. You basically grind it off, put a new surface on it. Anyway, so you can cheat that deterioration curve. You've got a 5, you put a new surface on it, you're back to a 10. Depends, and if you do an overlay, sometimes you're to 9. It really does depend on it. And you're more educated when you do those because you do soil cores and you find out what's the road base. There's a number of things that control the longevity of a road. Drainage is number 1. Number 2 is the road base. It also depends on the type of traffic. You heard me mention, Greg mentioned about some of those streets that are in tough shape. That portion of Charles has not been done in the 10 years since the 80s. The portion south of Charles has, and it's still holding its own. Construction methods have changed. That's what I'm telling you when you look at those deterioration curves. And also you take into account the type of road base for the type of traffic it's going to get. Riverside Drive, there's been advances in asphalt where you can put different emulsions in there to where right now a number of that is from the twisting action of the heavy loads. Structurally, that's where it's coming apart, it's from the heavy loads and the repetitive beating of the heavy traffic. We can do different asphalt mixes to make those last longer. There have been advances in that. That's what I would propose anyway for a solution to that, is to really take a serious look at, come up with a proposal based on however much we would look at for a millage, how much for a maintenance millage, and we can come up with the same thing, propose streets for just based on surfaces that don't really require any underground road work, as far as sanitary replacements, water mains are in good shape, that type of thing. But the other slide I want to show is special assessment. This is one you talked about. This will give you an idea if you do the special assessment route. And I want to be clear that there is an option if that is something that folks petition for. We can look into doing that on their particular street. Hayes Street, it's kind of an anomaly. There's a number of houses on there. If you look at the cost, you get about $12,000. That's its annual cost, plus you have the sewer assessment that you would add on there. And you have a number of houses to divide it under. But if you look at a street like Ely Street, that we had done between the 2 bridges on State and Woodworth, there's only about 5 properties you can assess. Look at what the special assessment would be per owner, $43,000. So that's an option, but it's not a palatable one. At least that's an option. So I'm giving you realistic costs if that's an avenue that's pursued. So with the road millage, everyone pays into it, lowers the price for. That's kind of how the taxes work. The more money you bring in based on spreading it out over many people, the more spending power you have. But that's what a special assessment would look like. And that's 2 good examples. We have one where there's a number of streets divided, and if you don't have many streets, that's what it can look like. And like I said, a sidewalk one, we send out 2,000 to 4,000. That tends to be controversial just on the sidewalk special assessment if you were to look down that road.
Now, what section of Ely Street are you looking at here?
That's between Woodworth Street and State Street. That was the one that was done about 4 years ago. That's how much that cost if we were a special assessment. Those are streets that have actually been done based on actual costs.
And so that's, I mean, part of the reason there's no parcels there is it's park on the, we own the park on the other side of that street. So
Yeah, but that's only 1 block of street, and you don't have many people to divide that up, so it depends on which street you do. That's why I said you look at 2 different ways of doing that. But that's what they would have paid if that would have been special assessed. And that is a major street, so those ones take a beating and a pounding, so it would have to be done. And if you special assess it, there could be ancillary issues with that as well, as far as people pay for it, they're gonna be more demanding, they might wanna reduce who drives on it, the type of traffic, that type of thing, priority of plowing, we can get into discussions based on that too. Where, it's like anything, if you pay for it yourself, you're gonna be extremely particular on things that happen.
Well, that's part of the problem now, I mean, because it's at no cost, everybody wants a new street now.
Oh, yeah.
There is costs other than we have the sewers, if there's a sewer and that type of thing, correct? Yes, everybody wants street, unless we do it, then they don't like it when we do the construction, but usually, if it goes good, it's quiet afterwards.
Well, they don't like it for a season, but they love it for the next 20 years.
Hopefully. But,
Unless we've done a poor job of construction, then that's on us.
well, but that's layers, those are the proposed streets. If there's any questions, that's my dissertation.
And my next question is, because we are one of the very few communities, as you've told us number of times, that has any type of local street millage. What are other cities doing? I mean, what alternatives have anybody else? What is our peer group doing? They've got no money. Why are their streets not a lot worse than ours? I mean, we've been doing this for 30 years, and I drive around the state. I don't see a lot of communities that are a lot worse than us. I mean, why are we so, we've got this millage and we still can't keep up any better than anybody else. We don't seem to be doing better than others. What's going on? Why, do we understand why?
Well, from my position, maybe the roads I drive are different than yours, so I don't know if we'll come to an agreement on that answer, but I can tell you where the avenues of funding are. They're the exact same. You would look at your federal aid funding. We are not a rural community to where we qualify for the small rural grants or small rural road programs. There are some of our adjoining communities that are, because they're smaller. That's based on population. So you have Act 51 money, federal aid, and then if you do qualify for any kind of grants, like if MDOT has grants for road projects, you can do those. Those are the options for funding. And I know what our streets are rated. I've rated them. I've driven in a number of other cities. We do have a number of miles, lane miles. My position is we're probably not much worse off when I look at the Pacer data and when I compare it to the state averages. We're kind of in line with those, but I don't drive the same streets or roads you do, so I don't know if I can give you a good, accurate answer on that.
Well, just,
Go ahead.
if I may, on the same question. How does our Pacer rating compare with, let's say, St. Louis? And how does St. Louis, if theirs is similar to ours, how does St. Louis pay for theirs?
Same things I just mentioned, Act 51, or if it goes through the 6-year funding rotations, that's how they do it. I do not know any other funding mechanisms they would have. I know that we are in the same state. I know what's optional to me, so I can't speak to that. I do know they were actively looking at a road millage a couple years ago. For whatever reason, they decided not to. I can't speak to why they did or did not. I can tell you that we are envied based on my peers in the community.
Are the Pacer ratings, I haven't looked, I know there's overlays on the GIS system. Are the Pacer ratings, are they available through the GIS system?
Not on the countywide, no, they're not. The Gratiot County publishes theirs. I can't speak for other communities, but they're not on the countywide GIS system.
Are ours on our website anywhere? I guess I haven't.
No, but they're not on there. We could put them on there.
I think that might be helpful. I'd like to see that certainly. I can imagine others would too.
Yep. And that's information I put in each of the goal settings, other than this year, because I talked about it. Typically, annually, I will submit those because we have to submit for them annually, show you the lane miles that we have, and I'll show the pie chart. That's historically been submitted annually to the commission. Definitely something we've shown. That's why I show you those trends on that bar graph of where we're going and what they've been rated in years past. So you can see how some of those will change because we base them on lane miles. So like when MDOT does Superior Street, we have to rate that. We submit it to the state of Michigan. If they do an overlay and everything goes to a 9, that changes our ratings. So we have more of them that go towards the 9 end than the lower end. Wright Avenue, same way. So that shows you where the trends are, and that's one thing I do want to explain.
Thanks, Dave.
Can I ask one other dumb question?
There are no dumb ones.
Riverside, okay?
Yeah.
You mentioned that that's one that we did originally, okay? And a lot of them that we are doing now are because the road and the sewer system and the water system were 100 years old. Is that not 20-year-old sewers and stuff under there? Why do we need to replace all of that now?
He
Why
was
can't
just
we
saying from the traffic that gets there, the heavy load
Nope.
traffic. It's not we're not gonna do the whole thing, we're just doing the surface.
Correct.
We are just doing
It's a
surface on that.
maintenance.
That's what I'm looking
In
at,
Riverside.
trying to explore
Extend the
different
life.
methods. on
Okay,
that,
all right, well,
because
that's what I was gonna say, why don't we use just the road maintenance?
That's
Why-
exactly it.
Okay, all right,
Every project is not a total reconstruction.
okay,
And hasn't been for very long, I don't believe.
okay.
No, they have been. That's why I'm exploring some different methods with this one. We're doing
Okay.
the mill and fills.
Yeah, it
Like,
seems to me like, you know, if that's 20-year-old sewers and water pipes underneath there, they shouldn't need replacing.
That water main was put in '94. Sanitary sewer has had updates on it. I have data on it from the SAW grant. For the most part, it's in good shape. There is one section of it, that's that little one at the north end of it, that should be upsized. But I have a plan of updating, changing and rerouting the sewer along Marshall Street, which is in a little tougher shape. But that street can wait another theoretically 6 to 12 years before it can be reconstructed. I don't see a need right now to replace that sanitary under Riverside, because the alternative is I can go around it and also increase that size that's needed from the gemstone development and reroute it and not have to get underneath of Riverside Street, saving costs on it, saving the curb, and just doing it. That's the whole idea for the methods that we're doing is
Bingo.
you redo the road for 4
Okay.
times, and then you can replace the surface before you do major reconstruction. So when I talk about maximizing a Marnie, that's what I'm talking
Okay,
about, is
bingo.
being
Good.
able to stretch
Thank
those
you.
dollars further.
Thank you.
More questions? All right, thank you, Dave.
Yes.
Thanks, Dave.
Oh, one thing I wanna, it's on the ballot, it's November 8th election, so I just wanna let everybody know that's on the camera watching at home, that it's on the November, well, it'll be on the November ballot. Let everybody know to go out and vote, and whatever you do, just make sure you vote. So, thank you.
I guess we don't need to receive that, do we? Discussion item?
It's just discussion.
Okay. Next, we entertain a motion to pay the appropriations. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Okay, motion is passed. Commissioner comments. Audra.
Can you end with me instead of starting with me?
For sure.
I gotta fight.
Okay. Roxanne, that puts you on the other end of the spectrum over here, so.
I made some notes tonight because I had some things and I don't trust my head. I have a brief synopsis of the Gratiot Water Authority meeting we had. Well, 12, the bids have been received. As far as when the work will be done, we're dependent upon receipt of materials, which is going to be the overarching issue for every single thing we do during that limited, it seems like 2 weeks of nice weather in the summer, but, so maybe late August, early September, but it's all dependent upon receiving pipes and all the other
They're
things.
estimating it was just awarded, they're hoping that they can get the materials in September, so that's where the discussion is.
Okay, so that's my brief synopsis about that. What else did I have? We had a meeting, the finance group in the library, and I commend Curtis. I feel like I know the tip of the iceberg of financial information. I feel like, the more we find out, the less I feel like I know about all of this, and so that's distressing to me personally, and I'm not sure, there's things that I gotta figure out how to ask, I guess, and what to pay more attention to, but I feel like we keep making these steps forward, and then there's still a lot that, we still have a long way to go. So, thank you, Curtis, for helping with that. Like the endowment, I had completely forgotten that the library had an endowment fund, except back millions of years ago when I was the figure figurehead for it, and we didn't do anything with it, and I don't know that we've had any conversation about it at all since then, so I'd like to change that. And Audra, I'm sorry that you feel that you can't speak your mind here. I'm really sorry about that, because I hope I've not been part of that. I know we disagree in some ways on this. I admire your work and your dedication and your passion for all that, and I certainly wouldn't want anything to harm our children. And I just want it to be said that my support of this is not that I feel like we should be handing out samples on the corners to kids, and I feel like there is a way. I'm all about regulation and rules, and personally, I just feel like we're constantly looking for a way to bring more revenue to the city, and if this is happening down the road or anyplace else, I'd like the city to reap some of the benefits of our people if they're going to use this in a responsible way. So I just wanted you to know that. But I think that's it. It's nuts. Those kids at Moose Road, I don't know that they even recognize that spring break's coming, but my goodness. It's like a madhouse over there, so. I'll be working, but I'm looking forward to people everyone else, I guess, being somewhere else. I don't know. I love them, but they're nuts.
Have you been as short-staffed as some of the other schools?
I don't know. It's just they're so high maintenance, those little people. I mean, I want to buy that old hospital and just run like a foster care agency in there and just take them all. There's a lot that needs to be done, for sure. So that's it.
Thank you, Roxanne. Danny?
I just want to say thank you, Dave. It's a lot of work, probably, a long time putting that together, and thank you for that diligence. And then, on a side note, yard waste is April, the first Monday in April, correct? The fourth? Fourth?
Oh, yard waste.
Yeah, so yard waste will start April fourth,
Yep,
and
yep.
got some yard work to do, so. Anyone wants to help? Thank you.
Where does the line form?
We're gonna need extra trucks for that first week of yard waste pickup. I think everybody's gonna have tons, still bags of leaves out.
It was a late drop.
Yeah.
Roger?
Uh,
I guess, Danny, we're done?
Thank you.
Okay. You need to cut you
I
off.
didn't mean to step on it, so. Again, thank you, Dave, good presentation. It's, like I said, I asked stupid questions, but there weren't stupid answers, so I appreciate that. So I don't think I have anything else. I was gonna talk about that parking lot thing, but we covered that, so thank you.
Okay. Nick?
What?
Somebody wake up,
really-
Dave.
Yeah, I wake up. I really don't have much to add. I think I've probably said enough today, so.
Thank you. Michelle?
I'm good.
I got a list now.
Okay.
See, this is why you're mad now. Roger, happy birthday.
Thank you. ma'am.
Yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
I missed it.
I was 35.
I was gonna say, you look so
Once.
good for 35.
Metric years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Really good for 35, good.
Yeah, really good. A couple things, related to child advocacy. April is Child Abuse and Prevention Month. So we celebrate, the awareness of bringing light to child abuse, not just in our community, but in other communities. And so there'll be lots going on throughout the month of April. One thing in particular, we are having a lunch and learn on April 7th. I believe that's a Thursday. It'll be our first in-person lunch and learn since COVID. We've been doing them all virtual, so I'm excited about that. And the topic is what your role is in child abuse prevention, because we all play a part. So if you're interested in that, that is on our Facebook page. You can register, and we will serve you a wonderful lunch from Hellman's, no charge. So we're excited about that. We do have one of our first fundraisers as well, in person. We're doing a designer purse auction and bingo. That's May 6th. That's a Friday night at the Elks. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about that. And then just putting on my chamber hat real quick. The annual chamber dinner is going to be a little different this year. It's a community celebration, and that is on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, Thursday night, and it'll be out at YFC. So tickets will be available for that at the chamber office and probably other locations as well, but I can only think of the chamber office right now. So yeah, lots of exciting things going on. I said today in a meeting, I think May must be the magic number where COVID will be gone. because we're all meeting in person again in May, so all the
Come
events are
back.
back on, so.
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
Yeah, I mean, I
Won't-
think
Won't
that's-
it be wonderful?
Yes, that's what's
Won't
gonna
it be
happen,
wonderful?
so, yeah.
We'll
so-
all have flu by then.
No, don't say that.
Everybody show a beat tonight.
Sorry,
Jinx
sorry.
us, yeah.
Sorry.
That's all I got.
That's all, okay. Sarah? Tony?
I'm good too.
Just, if you would like to talk about or learn about the downtown trees, MSU will be here for the public meetings on Wednesday, March 30th, 7 PM at the library. And then again, if you can't make that meeting, we're gonna have two, it'd be the same meeting, so you don't have to show up to both. April 6th at 7 PM at the library. So the students and Dr. Dalton are doing tree inventories and getting things around for those. So, but if you have questions beforehand, please get a hold of me. But if you'd like to learn about that, please stop in.
Anything else?
That's it?
Thank you. Roxanne, just in reference to the, I see Lori here from the library, and just want to make my comment about the, we're trying to turn over rocks looking for money as we tend to do, and the budget, in the past, it indicated that there was perhaps some money to be found in the library budget, and after that meeting, it seems there's not a great deal of money there, that in fact, it's perhaps underfunded, or something happened to our budget. I guess we had what's the number now, $130,000?
Projected between 130 and 160.
Deficit in that budget. So rather than finding new money, we found a black hole that we didn't know existed. So I guess the good news is we know it's there now, but it wasn't encouraging to help out the rest of our budget anyplace else. So keep looking, and we'll keep thinking and trying to look for new ways to stretch the dollars and make the roads go farther, last longer, or whatever we can do. I don't know what the answer is, but clearly what we're doing isn't cutting it, isn't gonna work for the future, so keep thinking about it. With that, we'd like to open up to the public, so if any member of the public would like to address the commission, please go to the podium, state your name and address, and share your thoughts. Mike, you wanna go first?
Hi, I am Brad Meals. I live on 205 Hubble Street. And I would just like to say I agree with everything Dave has listed to be repaired this year, because I live on the corner of Moyer and Hubble, and it is a complete wreck. That street has been, everybody loves to hear more about bad streets, but that street's been bad for probably close to 20 years. That corner's been, it is a seal-coated street, I believe, and it's just wore out. It's down to the dirt and potholes. So I'm glad to see that on the list. When you brought up special assessments, I about gasped. I hate them. I had a special assessment on water line in Ohio. It's hard to sell your house when you've got that attached to it. Down there, they broke it up and tied it to your tax statement over a 15-year period. It's just awful thing. And in my opinion, this street has been bad for pushing 20 years, according to neighbors that's lived there forever. And then all of a sudden, the new owners that have put up with this, or the owners that have put up with this all these years, then you want them to pay for that? Oh, that'd be terrible. I really hate that idea. And I guess that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I tell you, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's not anything I like talking about, but the reality is there's no money.
I'm sorry. They're just a terrible, terrible thing. And when we were given the guidelines for the special assessment down there, it was through a private company putting in a water line. And it was so much per foot of property frontage. And it ended up costing, we voted to go ahead with it. It ended up costing twice as much. That water line added $16,000 to my tax bill, or over a 15-year period. So that's terrible. And I think being just a regular citizen, voting and looking at millage, I don't think the average person knows what they're paying for. I mean, you can say it's for street repairs. You need to really advertise specifics. This is what we did this year because of the millage. I don't think anybody knows. They may know it's for street repair, but
It
let
doesn't
them
mean
know
anything, no.
Moyer Street and Hubble is hid back in far into town. People aren't gonna see that.
I see it when I go for my walks, and I agree, it needs repairs.
Okay,
I
thank
took
you
my
very
bu-
much.
I took my bus over it a week ago.
Well, I hope everybody drives down Moyer to get a look at it.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of those, so you can find them all over
Yeah.
the place, so that's the problem, there's too many of them. Anybody else care to address the commission?
My name is Alan Martin. I work at 528 Warwick Drive here in Elma, Michigan. I'm the Assistant Director of Operations for Consume Cannabis Company, and I'm the one that submitted the letter that was referenced earlier. I just really wanted to come in today to introduce myself officially to all of you and tell you a little bit about me and the company and where we come from. I know we've done a presentation and we've talked about medical sales. Our medical cards are on the decline, recreational is now legal, so a lot of people are transferring over to that. So I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us at the moment that could be missed. I would agree, yes, they may be able to travel a little bit outside of the city to get it, but the use is already here. So, adult use is here, so really we're just asking for the acceptance of legal sale of adult use marijuana, not necessarily for adult use within the city. So a little bit about me, I am actually a lifelong Michigan resident. I was born in Lapeer, moved up to central Michigan. Gosh, I was very young, so I was raised in central Michigan area. I've lived here, I've raised my family here. I reside in Mount Pleasant. I worked for Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort for the past 15 years prior to coming to the Consume Cannabis Company. In the management out there, in their retail and their marketing. I chose Consume. After reading up on the company, I really value the education that we provide, not only to our staff, we put them through a rigorous training ahead of putting them out on the floor because we want to give them as much knowledge to share with those coming in to Consume so that when they leave our facility, they have the information to make an educated decision on dosing themselves, and we'll help provide them with as much information on, terpenes and the effects and that type of thing. Consume came to fruition in about January of 2019. They started out in Illinois. I started in November of 2019. I believe was it 2019? Yes. When we opened in Elma. And I started out as the assistant general manager for Elma. Before we opened, I moved into the general manager position. I slowly transitioned through positions into the position that I am currently in now. Consume now has 11 dispensaries. We're in 3 states. We have 4 dispensaries in Illinois. We have 6 dispensaries in Michigan, and we have 1 dispensary in Arizona currently. So I oversee a majority of our dispensaries. I oversee all the 6 Michigan dispensaries. And I do take pride in, I know it's not for everyone, and everyone's going to have their own opinion on it. I do feel like it has helped me in many ways, medicinally. And then once I started using it medicinally, I found that it really helped me focus, which really helped me. I've obtained 2 degrees. Because I've had that little bit extra focus. So not saying that's solely all, but I was able to sit down and take that and really focus on writing papers and doing statistics and things of that nature. So I just really wanted to get up here in front of everyone today and say, this is me, this is who I am. And I thank you all for taking the time to consider the opportunity for us to be able to do adult use sales here with our facility that we do have here in Elma. And I hope that you all can really take a deep dive into it and see what the benefits truly are and really compare it to communities that are similar to your community, because I'm sure in some communities it does bring crime and it does bring those types of things, but we have to take a look at the community as a whole as well and see what's already there. And then when we came in, did it really get worse, or So I really hope that we can all have a really constructive conversation moving forward and hopefully really consider amending that ordinance. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Zach Everett. Thank you, Alan, for coming up here and talking in favor of marijuana in the city of Elma. I feel like I'm kind of the only one that gets up here and says anything sometimes. Just very briefly, I agree with you, Audra. I think people are going to be able to go just east of town to buy from Fire Island in the very near future, and I would encourage everyone to do that. The issue that I see with that, listening to Alan, is I think that cripples someone like Consume in the marketplace, and that's going against my own self-interest. I also hold part of one of the third provisioning center for Elma. I don't understand what we're protecting. That's what I don't understand at this point. Who are we protecting? We talk about the kids. Marijuana's in Gratiot County. Marijuana's in Elma. We have a lawful retail store operating in Elma right now. It is medical only. Any other provisioning center in the state of Michigan could deliver in the city of Elma. There's nothing that the city of Elma could do to stop that. Fire Island will be able to deliver to residents of the city of Elma once they're open. That's real. So I don't understand who we're protecting by not allowing these stores to operate in the lawful marketplace that exists. I also don't understand the disconnect between alcohol consumption and cannabis consumption. I mean, we have events, city sponsors events, all the commissioners get behind events, and we stand on the street and we drink alcohol. Now, I support your ability to do that, your choice to be able to do that. But we have a bike trolley going through town that people can drink alcohol on. But we don't allow people over 21 to go into a store and purchase marijuana lawfully. It is lawful in the state of Michigan, whether anybody likes it or they don't like it. It's lawful, and you're going to be able to literally go just outside of town to the east here very shortly and purchase it. So I don't understand. I mean, we've had these conversations, the discussion about medical marijuana. I was part of that. I was part of the petition drive when we were trying to get the city to pass that ordinance back then. I've been involved in other municipalities. When you can go to Edmore, you can go to Mount Pleasant, you can go to Arcata Township and get adult use, and any of those can deliver inside the city limits of Elma. I just don't understand what we're protecting, what the benefit of not having it here, when there are benefits of allowing it here, which is the revenue aspect. There's not any additional electricity with respect to medical versus adult use marijuana. You grow medical marijuana, you grow recreational marijuana, uses all the same stuff, all the same nutrients, same electricity, same everything. So there is no difference in that regard. So I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to have a discussion about it. Obviously, this is a big part of my life and getting bigger as we go. So, I just think that the business is operating in the medical world now. It's a different marketplace now than it was when we were contemplating medical facilities in the city of Elma. I think this is absolutely the right time to have a discussion about it. Take as much time as you want while you're talking about it, because Fire Island will get up and running and will be over 21 for anybody that wants to come out there while we're working through this. But, I plan to be part of this process with the city, and I want to work with the city collaboratively to make smart decisions about how this needs to go. But I think this is important for the city to do, and I think that the city will benefit from it. So, thanks.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Would I be able to make one more statement? I would like to open an invitation to every single one of you to come and take a tour of one of our facilities with me. I will travel to any of our facilities to be able to do that for you guys as well, just so you can see what our operations are like. I think that would be very beneficial as well. So I just wanted to
I did that
extend
early in your
Yes.
existence, and it was very interesting. I learned stuff that I had no idea.
So yes, please reach out anytime. I would be more than happy to make that happen.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else care to address the commission?
And
So I'm Curtis Dancer, Finance Director. I just wanted to thank the commission real quick. Outside of audit season, budget season is probably the most stressful time for the finance department. And over the last few weeks, I've gotten to take part in 2 separate leadership training opportunities. One is through the chamber, that they brought in, it's the Gresham Young Professionals Network. They brought in a group of leaders in the community, and Eric and Audra both were two of the leaders that they brought in for a panel to do a discussion. And we were there for a couple of hours with the panel, and it was an amazing experience. It really was. It was awesome to listen to them, listen to the stories, and get some advice from them as far as how to be a leader in this community as somebody that's still getting their footing as far as kind of new to the position and still kind of learning. And then also the leadership training that we did, the commission sponsored here, the 2 classes that we had with all the other department heads. I'm not going to speak to them, they can speak to themselves. I loved it personally, I thought it was great. Great opportunity. We had a lot of great discussions even with the department heads afterwards. And I was talking to our trainer, and she said one of the best compliments is to hear that after the training's over, that people are still talking about it and stuff. And I think Madison can support the fact that even within the finance department, after the training, we came back and we talked about some of the things we talked about there for a lengthy amount of time. And I think I really learned how to be a better leader from it and really getting to bounce ideas off of them that we heard. So I just really wanted to say I really appreciated you guys offering those opportunities for us. So I just want to say thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Curtis?
You will note that Eric and I were on the other side because we were old professionals.
Yeah.
Seasoned, right?
We did not catch that, Audrey.
But the younger.
You're the seasoned professionals, right?
You guys are young to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
It's
Tony.
all relative, isn't it? Anybody else?
Curtis started a trend, staff trend here. Dave Ringel, Public Services Director. One thing I forgot to mention in all of my ramblings, you mentioned comparison to other communities. I do know this, the Road Commission is, the last few years, the Gratiot County Road Commission, has had talks with several townships about creating a road millage because they are falling behind on their roads. I can tell you that there are a number of townships that instead of doing graveling, 3 times a year, they're down to once a year or once every other year. Brining, they're going from 3 times to 1 time a year. Seal coating, their amount of streets or roads are shrinking. So when I hear that, we're failing, that really concerns me because we're not able to keep our head above water, but we're not sinking as fast as our neighbors. And I want to be very appreciative to mention to the voters that have been supporting us for 30 some odd years that we are a unique company. I view the city of Elma as leaders because we have that. And there are a number of communities that are exploring millages. It's not just us for this renewal. That's why I want to be very much in favor of a renewal and exploring some other options. But I encourage anybody with any questions or anything to reach out to me. I just want to put that on the record that there's going to be a number of other ones that are proposing funding increases the next couple of years because you just look at inflationary costs. The projections I gave you today are based on real numbers, based on underground for storm pipe, for manholes. A number of those things are increasing. And our dollars may not get as far as they did before, but I'm biased to believe we're holding our own and it is helping. If we didn't have it, I don't want to venture to say what would happen. So we would basically be left with just our Act 51 money to do seal coats. And once every 6 years, if we were lucky, we'd have money to share with Act 51 money, like Pine Avenue. That one is going to be your Act 51 funds in the next 2 years. That's where that money's going, so we have to use that money for sharing. If anybody remembers, that's about $475,000 the state gives us. We're looking at a cost sharing of $2 million on that to do that road. So we need fund balance in the Act 51 funds. So this puts us in better position to acquire those roads. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Last call. Everybody, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
A motion support. More comments? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion's passed. We're adjourning. Thank you very much.